Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to DeXe DAO Talks. We have a guest today, Deepa from Impact DAO. Hi Deepa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you as well. Awesome. Okay, so we connected, and it's good to
Great.
see Twitter Spaces work, right? So, we're going to talk about DAOs today, but before we dive too deeply into it, let's introduce Deepa a little bit. Would love to for the audience to hear more about who she is and what she does. I'm just gonna let Deepa talk about herself because she knows herself better.
Great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Represent Impact DAO. So, this is a growing category of DAOs within the DAO landscape. And people who are engaged in Impact DAOs are essentially change makers who are using Web3 to organize, allocate resources, and make real world difference. And How and why I got into Impact DAOs in Web3. I'll begin with my story. So I'm a social entrepreneur. I've always worked at the intersection of technology and social impact. And so before Web3, I was tracking social entrepreneurs using platform to accelerate impact, do good, and I was writing their stories. And once, as always, I was on Twitter. I saw Balaji's tweet and also the co-founder of Polygon tweeting about this crypto fundraiser that they were doing for India's COVID outbreak. And they were like, we're going to raise money in crypto only, and we're going to make an impact, and we're going to buy oxygen cylinders and all that stuff. And I was like, I never looked at crypto closely, but I had always heard about the scams in crypto. And I'm like, how can this internet money buy oxygen cylinders? It's just money on the internet. Like, does it have any real purchasing power? And I wanted to really track that campaign. It was out of curiosity, basically. And opened a Substack and I started writing about that campaign from day one. And 3 days later, Vitalik Buterin donated $1 billion worth of Shiba coins, which is basically a meme coin. And I was like, wow, now what will this translate to? But cutting the story short, I recently touched base with the people who are managing that fund. They've now registered themselves in Dubai. They're rebranding the campaign. They're not calling Crypto Relief India. They're going to call it Blockchain for Impact because there's a lot of negativity around crypto. But anyways, the $1 billion donation and all the money that was globally raised after liquidating it slowly into stable coins and in Indian rupees, because that's how they would eventually spend. It's come to about half 500 million. So basically half of a billion, which is not bad, which is created out of nothing. And they made tons of impact during COVID. They bought oxygen cylinders, but now they want to make strategic investments in India's health infrastructure. So that's how I got into Web3 basically. And then the reason I went down the DAO rabbit hole was because of Ukraine DAO, which came along on Feb 24th. In fact, 2 days before Feb 24th. The Feb 24th was when Russia did a full-blown invasion on Ukraine. And I saw this DAO come around on Twitter. Like, they literally built on Twitter. They organized themselves on Twitter. They fundraised $7 million in 5 days using a party bid. Which is you can pool in your money so you can bid on an NFT. And it was amazing, the entire campaign. Like, they made use of every single Web3 tool, from POAPs to even they took a loan from Avi because they wanted to outbid themselves. So Flash loan too, for that matter. And I was like so impressed. I'm like, this is the future of doing good. It's not going to be anything else, but this is it. Being on the internet, mobilizing on the internet, coming together on the internet, and making use of Web3 tools that facilitate collaboration on the internet to make real world impact. So that's my story into Impact DAOs so far.
That's amazing. I remember when Vitalik did that as a very nice act trolling Shiba hype and also doing something really good with all that. And also, I was part of Ukraine DAO for a bit too, and then part of other Ukraine-focused DAOs later. And so I remember some of that process. Of course, some of our team is from Ukraine, is Ukrainian, so that's something very close to me. Um, you mentioned, so obviously it's a good way to collaborate and to gather funds and to convert it to whatever currency is used for. But why specifically DAO? Why not just, you know, put up a wallet, for example, and just send all the funds there? What makes a DAO as a structure uniquely fit or best fit, as it were, for this kind of impact activity, in your opinion?
Because when you work collectively, you can do more. And I'm not saying that that's true all the time, because I think we are going to see an era of solo entrepreneurs powered by AI as well. And so there can be DAOs that will be powered by AI and can generate more impact because you're doing less coordination. But I just feel that when people come together, there's something called collective intelligence. Like, you tap into each other's viewpoints and ideas, and then you need people working at the intersection of certain things. Like, I feel like artists can come for a cause, they can and somebody, like, if I'm passionate about, say, making education for kids, I mean, it will be so much better if I pull into global expertise rather than me doing it single-handedly, because I don't have answers for everything, right? I want to figure out how can I mint an NFT, for instance, that represents a school. Then it's just easier to collaborate with artists and artists who are in this space. And if I want to know what the conditions are of a school in, or if I want to gather local research on education in, I'm just throwing an island, say Fiji, and then I can, if it's decentralized, then I can tap into a person who lives there and he can do the reporting for me. So I think the DAO model is so powerful because it decentralizes um, uh, knowledge gathering. It decentralizes almost everything. And so you coordinate in a decentralized fashion to make a bigger impact, which will be impossible to do solo, even with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Being part of several DAOs, I've seen that, especially with far as pulling together resources and collaborating and getting things done in a very fast and effective manner. What I've noticed sometimes with some DAOs is that on the decision end of that, there's some issues in terms of governance, right? Because when there's so many people governing, how do you get them to govern effectively, honestly,
That's right.
efficiently?
Yeah.
Have you seen anything um, in that case in terms of DAO governance, how it's being done, like, what you don't like?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's my favorite topic, by the way, because when I got into DAOs as
Great.
outsider, I was like, what's going on in this DAO world? Like, it's such a shit show, like around governance and all that. Like, what's happening? Why are they voting without discussing, firstly? And even if there is a discussion, like, why is everything getting voted upon? Like, why are you voting on the color of the logo? So basically, to conduct Impact DAO study, we did an intensive study of 12 Impact DAOs. We started a DAO ourselves. So we wanted to live the DAO life and experience it, and then see what are the problems, because we thought if we live the experience, it's better. We can ask better, smarter questions that we are also, all the pains that we are also going through. And so one of the things that I encountered within my own DAO was around voting. So I'm the only full-time contributor in my DAO, and the entire, like, as an initiator of the project, like I initiated the project, and everybody else is part-time, and which is great. I love that. But there are some contributors who only show up like for an hour a day, and then they started asking me about why are we not voting, because we were doing a branding around that time, and we had a branding agency from New York City who actually gave their services pro bono to us, and they came up with the logo and everything, and they're like, why didn't we take a vote on this? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're not even here every day, and things are moving at a rapid speed. We've discussed this matter in Discord. Like, we've had a full-on discussion around it. We just didn't vote on it. Now, do you expect me to write like a snapshot proposal and then go vote on it? Like, isn't it adding more processes? Like, isn't it? I felt like so bureaucratic at that point of time. Like, what am I dealing with? And so I did this podcast and I invited people from Proof of Humanity, which has had their own DAO governance issues, All for Climate DAO, which is a DAO in the climate space, and they are very sensible and they use holacracy and everything, deep democracy. And I wanted to know their views on voting and governance. And so I invited experts. Like, I invited another girl who's done research, and her research got published. And so I invited these people, and what the conclusion of that podcast was that too much voting leads to polarization. Okay, so it divides the group because, and also it adds processes. It makes things so slow, bureaucratic. Like you don't want to deal with that, and also it leads to fatigue because your community is being asked to vote again and again. And after some point of time, they'll stop reading. They'll just go with the crowd, like whoever's voting for whatever, or what's my friend voting on, let's just vote on that, you know? So it doesn't lead to the outcome that you expect. So I think we need to differentiate decision making and voting. Decision making is one part of a DAO where you discuss. People who are operating the DAO on a daily basis should discuss matters, explore, and come to decisions and keep moving the needle forward, while voting can be done with the larger community on issues that does not impact the core operations of the DAO, because at the same time, you're there to get work done. You're not there to vote. You're not there to play community all the time. Community is great. It's great, but we need to understand the nature of a community. Not everybody is not present 100% of the time, and so you can slowly decentralize and invite people into your daily operational decision making as they spend more time in your DAO. You can do that, but inviting everybody to vote on everything just does not make sense.
Yeah, so that's like a huge issue that obviously I've been thinking about a lot. It's a big issue, right? And by the way, I love Proof of Humanity. I'm part of it, along with Circle. They're trying to tackle, of course, the UBI, and it's amazing. I hope they succeed, although it's very difficult right now. But to kind of just stick to that point, where too much voting diffuses the energy and gets nothing done, and lack of voting is, of course, in a way authoritarian. How do you find the middle ground? Just for example, not to make this about DeXe, but in our DAO constructor that we're going to release soon, we solved that by, fine tuning different voting types for just giving people tools to make maybe procedural votes last shorter and just the quorum reached, and also have a shorter quorum, for example, while treasure spending bigger, existential type of votes could be longer, could be validator enforced, or having second round validators, given those different flexible mechanisms. But that's just one way, right, that we saw of doing it. That's what we came up with. But what have you seen? What do you think could be a good way to give the DAO the power to, I guess, decide in a democratic way of what gets voted on, what doesn't get voted on, what gets voted with more people, fewer people, faster, longer, what keeps the process moving, but it's still through to DAO principle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that. And I think these are some of the problems that Impact DAO Media is trying to solve. What we're doing is we're studying the current Impact DAOs, and we're figuring out how they're governing, what's the impact on the operations and stuff like that. And based on our first research, we've come to a few conclusions around that, around how to tackle that, how to be effective and decentralized. And it so happened that Vitalik Buterin also published an article around that same time on corporations and how DAOs are not corporations, and basically detailing different ways of decentralization. And one key takeaway from that article was, and also this is what I've been advocating for, is that divide your decisions. Do not feed all your decisions to be the same. Figure out what are the decisions that the core body should take, and what are the decisions that the community should make. And those decisions, the community, the one that the community needs to make, could be opened up for voting. And they can be decisions like budget too, for that matter, right? Because budget is so important. Like, isn't the whole game around allocation of funds? Like, how do we allocate funds? And so Gitcoin does that. And I think it's pretty effective, because what Gitcoin does is, they were part of a study, is that they have these work streams, and they have budgets for these work streams, and different work streams propose budget. That's when they invite the community to vote on it. And based on that vote, it triggers the smart contract, and, the budget is allocated to different work streams. I do find some downside to it, because, how the GTC token can be acquired by anyone because it's listed on the decentralized exchange. So, even on budgeting, like, you can have people come and influence without having context. Also, they employ delegate voting, which is which is has been the common way to do voting across DAOs. So it started with DeFi DAOs, and delegates right now are voluntary. Like anybody who raises their hand or who promises to read, but they're not paid. And I think if you pay them, then they will do their job very seriously in terms of delegates reading the proposals really well and then casting the vote on behalf of the community really well, because then you're incentivized to read. And that's how democracies in countries are run, right? Like, firstly, they don't put their passports on decentralized exchange because it's scary. Somebody can come and buy and use that to vote. Like, there are so many rules around voting in democracies. Like, you need to be above a certain age, because then you understand, you can make better decisions. And then you have these delegates that you elect. And I know, democracies aren't a perfect example of, like, if you run it in the true way, like the leader is good, I think it all comes down to leadership, then democracies can be very effective. Otherwise, we've seen democracies aren't very effective either.
So you raise a very interesting point there in terms of if everyone just delegates a vote or the delegated vote without any context, then it's not really going to reflect thoughtful decision on whatever the proposal is and thoughtful direction for the DAO. I use delegators for a lot of things, delegates for a lot of things. There's one that I trust a lot, Olympia DAO, and he just Olympia, and he kind of does a report on each vote that's important and that we delegated to him on why he's voting a certain way, and he's welcome to take comments and consider the comments of those who delegated to him. But that's one example of many, and there's no system for validating these delegators and making sure they actually do study the votes and do act in the interest of those who delegated to them, right? So I wonder what kind of incentives you've seen or you were thinking of for delegators. Again, to use our own example, we're going to have in our DAO constructor a sort of DAO of experts where those who are expert in certain field, let's say I'm an expert in marketing and I get honored as an expert in marketing for this DAO of expert, my vote will equal more than a vote of someone who's not an expert when the vote is specifically in marketing. And let's say I'll get a 10x multiplier or whatever, right? When it's a vote on technical aspects, my vote will be equal to 1 or something, or less maybe, right? And those kind of validators can be, or those kind of delegates can be elected, but there's going to be some sort of verification for the expertise, right? So that's one solution, but maybe that helps you subjective. Maybe there's another way to ensure that those actually voting, those actually making decisions are expert and will act in the interest of the community. Have you seen any sort of incentives for that?
Yeah,
sort of
I think
for that?
yes. So what I'll add to that, and I have seen that happening in few places. So what I'm advocating is for merit-based layered voting. So merit-based means you earn your right to vote through contribution, because now you have skin in the game and you've been contributing. And obviously, every DAO can set their own incentives, or their own thresholds. Like if you contribute X number of hours, you're now invited to participate in our governance. Or if you acquired skills or knowledge, as you said, DAO experts. Because sometimes now in decentralized science space, it's very important that people have knowledge. They have expertise on the matter they're voting. You can't invite community to vote. If you're doing synthetic biology, like, I can't vote on it. I have no idea what it is. Like, I don't have context. But what if I acquire that knowledge by participating in the DAO, by organizing the events, by learning, by being open to learn, and just acquire it through that? Then they can invite me. And so this is where I'm coming to. Valley DAO is the DAO in decentralized DAO space. They're part of our next research study, but I've already had Morgan, who's the community lead of Valley DAO, on our podcast, and he talked about it. He talked about something called the Grow Token. So synthetic biology, they want to open it up to people like you and me, everyday people. Like, we can be part of the community, we can learn about it, and we can participate in their DAO. You don't have to be a scientist or a biologist to participate. But they do, obviously, the core team is made up of experts, but they want to build with the community and all that stuff. They want to make it easy for people to understand. So the way it works is they give grow tokens. So if I participate in any of the work streams and I do well, like even as a person who does not have expertise but acquired expertise over the period of time, then they give me grow token, and now I can participate on certain decisions. And so it's layered decision making. I can't participate on all decisions in the beginning. I can participate on certain decisions, and as I grow more in their organization, then I the next level of decision making unlocks for me. And I think that makes sense, because there are certain decisions which are technical, which you can't have. Like even like proof of humanity, they had so many protocol level decision making to do. And because they also had the UBI token, they had like 16,000 UBI holders who now invest in their DAO. And that was the problem at the time, because they didn't, most of the people weren't interested in protocol. They were the UBI holders, they were people, everyday people. They didn't understand the infrastructure. And obviously, they did employ delegate voting, but those participants are not even interested in delegating their votes. They didn't come for that. They came for UBI. So I think it's very important that DAO experts, there's a way to incentivize gaining expertise and the right to vote. I think that's very important. In democracies, a right to vote has been established by the government. Like you need to be the citizen, but also you need to be of a certain age and ta-da-da. And so why can't we have right to vote? Obviously, one right to vote is that you need to hold a certain token. But if we really want to make effective decisions, then I think that's not enough. I think it should be merit based. It should not be based on if I bought the token, but it should be based on if I have the merit to participate in decision making.
Uh, y- I have several follow-up questions because it's actually an interesting question. But personally, I'm super interested in proof of humanity, UBI, and circles. So I want to ask that one first. If only just because it's like a noble concept, right? For everyone to have a payout every second of every day for just being human that they can spend on anything. But obviously, UBI token, last I remember, completely tanked, right? It's close to zero relative to where it used to be a year or 2 years ago. UBI is a little more successful with, I think Berlin is where they're trying out, doing a little test run of local businesses accepting Circle token, and there's being exchange of services. But how do you incentivize? So let's look at UBI, let's look at humanity UBI, let's look at Circle, or just for humanity for that matter. How do you incentivize the DAO members, and how do you vote and structure, and what can you do to create this kind of sustained growth in the project that basically gives away its money for free, turning its supply less and less valuable with every second? What kind of structure do you see possible? What kind of governance?
Yeah, I think you should look at Good Dollar. Good Dollar is similar. They're doing UBI. And Anna Stone, she's leading it. I feel that their approach has been very pragmatic with UBI. They're in so many countries, like I forget the number, like 40 plus countries, and they've been slowly decentralizing. They started DAO in Jan 2022 after almost a year of running the protocol. So they didn't launch the DAO first at the onset, but they gradually decentralized, and they were part of a study. And they released two different kinds of tokens. One was like governance token that had no financial value to it. And then they obviously have the G token, which is the UBI token. Also, the way they incentivized is that they have these champions in every country, like people who advocate for UBI, say Good Dollar UBI, the local people basically who get the word out. It's ultimately free money, and everybody is interested in free money, but somebody needs to be your spokesperson. And so the ones who are active spokespeople, like these are in-country ambassadors, you can think of them. They became part of the DAO, and then they Good Dollar started releasing all their in-country jobs that they needed. Like if we want to hire a storyteller or somebody who does videos about the impact or whatever, they started releasing those jobs to the DAO members. Like now, because you're part, and these people are UBI holders essentially, because because when you're holding a UBI and you believe in it, you become like a champion of it. So the ones who actively showed interest became part of the DAO, and they got first access to the jobs that Good Dollar had for to grow the community. So it was very, everything was benefiting the next thing. Like it was a circular economy of value in terms of, you add value to me and I add value to you, kind of a thing.
So how does it maintain the value of the good token and the UBI token? By taking the fee of all the jobs and all the economy in there? Is it that kind of economic?
No, they get paid, right? They get paid in G token. Like if you get a job with Good Dollar, then you get paid. And Good Dollar is forming a lot of partnerships in terms of where those G tokens can be used for actual services. So in Africa, they can be used for mobile minutes and stuff like that. So there is value, of that. I think you should go back and listen to this podcast that I have it on all about Impact DAOs with the founder of Good Dollar, Anna Stone, and also the community and partnerships lead. I have two podcasts on them, which is it's really interesting. If you're especially interested around UBI and incentivizing your UBI holders to become your champions and advocates, I think they've really cracked the model on that. There are two podcasts. One is with the community lead, and one is with the co-founder Anna Stone. I'll share the link. I'll share the link. Definitely listen to it.
Definitely, yeah, definitely share it in the chat. I want all of our listeners to see it. We look at their website and it's fascinating what they're doing. I hope it really succeeds. Really, is it
Actually, if you go to impactdaos.xyz, impactdaos.xyz, all our research is hosted there, and there's a case study, Good Dollar, and also a podcast link is there. But from the case study too, we've linked the podcast to Anna Stone and Salah. Yeah, so it's the best way. Like in fact, in a study we had three proof of humanity, not proof of, what am I saying? Not proof of humanity, but UBI projects. So we had proof of humanity, we had Good Dollar, and we had Impact Market. So Impact Market does UBI for the poorest of poor people. And so the way they are incentivizing is that they have a token. It's called the PACT token. And so every time a donor, because what they're doing is that their UBI is funded by philanthropic money, like people like me who wants to do good and want to reach the poorest of poor. And we all understand UBI is the best way to make an impact because, you get rid of the middlemen. And then poor people, they best know how to spend the money. We should not interfere with their decision making. Like they know best what to buy for themselves, what to get for themselves. So UBI is the best way to basically help people in the poor countries. And so if I want to make do most good, I can donate my money to Impact Market. Impact Market will put that in their UBI pool of money. And in return, I get something called a PACT token. And now I can participate in the decision making when it comes to, they've already selected like these are the countries that they're going to approach based on the poverty index. But within those countries, which are the communities they should go to and all that stuff, they put out that as a vote for community to decide. Like within Brazil, should we go to this slum or should we go to that slum? Those kind of decisions.
That is amazing and empowering. I love it. And we'll study it more. I posted the link to the case to our chat. The other question I had based on what you said before was, you mentioned the Grow token. Is that like a soul-bound token? Is it a token? Is it a dynamic token that grows with floating value?
I think so they're part of a study, and I will be having Morgan back, and we'll be going very in depth. But I think it's because they also have IPs now. So they have two types of token, and I think this one is a soul-bound token, the Grow token. But they also have another one where you can, which has a financial, you can benefit from that IP NFT. So they have an IP NFT too, which has a value. So yeah, we that podcast is also there. But we're gonna have the entire team back, and we're gonna go really drill down with all these more technical information on them.
Yeah, it's just a matter of be really cool to have. And I think it's already possible to have, whether it's a token or whether it's an NFT, really, like a fungible token that grows with the experience of the person and with the expertise of a person, in a way adding more voting power in specific ways or variously modifying it, and also possibly reversing, right? If the person that it's bound to is losing her credentials or in some way getting less trusted by the community. I think that would be a very interesting way to regulate both access and governance power, right?
Soul-bound tokens are going to play a very important role going forward. And they are they are going to change the DAO governance game altogether. I had Autospace on the podcast. Again, they were developing the soul-bound tokens before Vitalik Buterin published the article, the research on soul-bound tokens. And they were like, that just validated their whole approach, because the team that came together to build soulbound tokens, which they called badges, was from SoundCloud, and they were looking at that point, they were looking as ways to incentivize creators, music creators. And so they carried a lot of those concepts, and they were building soulbound tokens known as badges. And there are many others now that are doing soulbound tokens. They're building the rails for it. But once they are easily and readily available to everybody, then you can start putting, a lot of history around everything on chain, like work history, like you can attest work, you can, you can validate skills, and all of that identity, the composite identity, you can volunteer somewhere, and one person can have like different badges to represent that person. You can be like co-living with Gift DAO, you can be a Grow token holder with Valley DAO, you can volunteer with Impact DAO Media, and all of that composite identity is going to be so crucial, because then that unlocks different economic opportunities within, I would say within on the internet, because DAOs are the future, and everybody, right now we are like small scale, but it will be mainstream. And then imagine the economy, that you can participate. It's a global economy. Like you can be in a slum in Brazil, or in Bombay, or in Africa, and you can build this online identity, for yourself through soulbound tokens. And now you can participate in global economy. You don't have to be paid in your local currency anymore. Like that's the beauty of it, plugged into a global monetary system.
You mentioned global economy, which I absolutely agree with. And personally, I believe that DAOs really work well when every member has the possibility in any given time to be, an investor by holding a token, a sort of employer by making proposals that could spend the budget or reward other members for activity, and then of course an employee, a worker, by doing that activity and claiming the rewards. Now, I saw on your channel, on your Telegram channel, that you mentioned that intrinsic rewards are kind of the best rewards, the best to get them motivated. Do you see where, how far those intrinsic rewards go? If there's any situation where extrinsic rewards are better, or maybe a mixture of?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you repeat what's
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Hey, I saw from your Telegram channel that the DAO creators should focus on intrinsic rewards, right? On getting members to really want to contribute, which of course makes sense.
Yeah, yes, I get that. Yes, I think that's very important. And intrinsic, like if you have mission driven people, and this is again, I'm talking about from Impact DAO's context, because we align for meaning here. People are aligning for mission. They want to do something. They're just like totally done with it in their real life. They want to make a change, and so they align around mission. And I think that intrinsic motivation to align around mission is very, very important, because the extrinsic motivation is not always there, right? Like your token is not doing good today, for instance, right? Like let's take Pancake DAO, let's take any DAO. Every DAO token, like the ones who mobilize the community through tokens, the tokens aren't doing that well. And now you can imagine the drop off, right? Like how many contributors are dropping off because there is no extrinsic motivation. But if you're really, really mission aligned and mission, like if you're really like if you can find that true tribe that is inherently motivated, they will work during bad times too. They will be with you during bad times too. And so I think it's very important to keep fine tuning your tribe. It is the most important thing, and set the values and grow your tribe within the bounds of those values. Whatever values you set as a DAO, that we will be open source, or we would be accessible, or or we will make knowledge accessible, or affordable, like whatever your values are basically that you see. I think you should grow your tribe with those values. Like if we are going to be intentional, be intentional. So it's so important. I think it's the number one thing. The culture, the tribe is the number one thing, because you want your DAO to last, right? You come together around a mission, and you don't want that when the during bear market you are the only one sitting and working on that mission. You want people to be still there with you, your tribe to be there when there is nothing extrinsic about it at that point of time.
So yeah, that totally makes sense, especially now when we're in the bear market, and some say that bull market's going to come soon, some say it won't. No one really knows, and there is a drop. We follow DAOs weekly, and there has been a drop even in the number of DAOs, let alone treasury value, and of course, you have to wonder who's in it for the mission, who's part of the tribe, and who's just kind of along for the ride. Bull market, I guess, is really good for kind of shaking out those who are just there for a free ride. But any other mechanism that you've seen in your idea that how to make sure, you talk about finding a tribe and aligning well with them. What way do making sure that we really got your tribe to see are the people of your tribe, that these are the people who are mission focused, or with you in good and bad times?
Yeah, if you hold on to your values, I think the ones who joined initially thinking that the values align, but in difficult times, a lot of people break. Like difficult times make people behave differently, and so they will filter out. They will leave. They will leave, and then you'll be left with your true tribe. So it's okay if you cut down from 100 to like 10 people. They're your best people. You want to grow with them, and you want to attract more like them. So it's totally fine. Like, don't. I think difficult times are the best time to filter out people who are playing the short term game. Who are there only for the money. I think you need to be there for the long term, and this is the best time actually to fine tune, and it'll happen automatically. People will, the ones for money, like even I can say from Impact Media, they've left. They don't even. They were very active, but now we're building in the bear market, and it's the true people that are left, that are there. They're very motivated to crack this code on effective decentralization on the internet, and also how do we fundraise. Like how do we become independent from grants, because Impact DAOs are social impact organizations. They don't have money. They're not relying around money, so they don't have business models at the onset sometimes. Like some have, but not all have. And so uh, we're all figuring out, like, the Telegram group is such a great we have such a great vibe, because everybody is very mission driven, and we are all figuring out solutions to some really hard problems, and we don't have answers, but everybody's open for experimentation.
Am I hearing right that you're saying that focus on the mission and financial balance will come, or kind of look for balance earlier on, and kind of get your structure in order to get your, not necessarily maybe end game, but get some sort of a future plan in order so that the DAO doesn't run out of steam, financially and otherwise.
Yeah, I think if you have mission driven people, they will work pro bono. So your DAO will not get out of steam. Like, for instance, I've been working full time, and I'm pro bono, and so Impact Media will never die, because you have one person who's working. And my passion will invite others to work, and they will invite the true people, right? Because I'm so passionate that others would want to chime in too. And did you know, like, the open source movement initially, when the open source software was written, the whole free open source movement, the Linux, it was written by people collaborating on an email list, and it was they were all, nobody took money, they were all contributing because the mission was so grand, and it was email collaboration. Like, can you imagine like how far we've come? Like, we have tools to really make a collaboration easier. So if you're mission driven, it's not, the money's not it money is not the factor, it's the people, it's your tribe that will make the difference. Money is it's we've seen WeWork. If you've seen the We Crash documentary, how much money they had, right? Like, how much money they had, but they totally screwed up, like, right, they had to cancel their IPO too. So money money is not what makes impact, it's the people.
It really does feel like that open source movement, that Linux movement 2.0, in a way right now with DAOs, especially, but with all the blockchain tech. But I do have to wonder though, because a lot of us, yes, can afford to work pro bono because we have, full-time jobs or part-time jobs or consultancies, or money from getting into crypto early, etc. Right? But doesn't that limit the space in the world of blockchain development and building of these DAOs to those who can afford to do that? Kind of becomes like a rich person, privilege, whatever term you want to use. Someone who can afford it person's game versus allowing more access to people who don't have the money, who have to feed their family, who have to choose between working on DAO or working at
Yeah, I
office of
yeah,
job.
I understand that, and I understand that. And a lot of them, in fact, in a study, were holding full-time jobs. So, for instance, Pact DAO, which is Marissa Rando and a team, they're building hyper-local mutual aid in New York City. They're doing some fabulous work. They were part of a study, and the whole team holds a full-time job. And on the weekends, they do the DAO stuff, But the DAO's move is going really well. They started in September 2021. They did a Mirror fundraise. They raised 21,000 through Mirror fundraise, just by minting the idea of mutual aid, in New York City. They also accept donations in fiat. They also, because they're working in New York City and not everybody holds crypto, and also they fundraise on this thing, Gitcoin. And that money enables them to keep their contributor economy going. Like, in fact, Impact DAOs at a much better place because a lot of them fundraise on Gitcoin, and Gitcoin donations are in DAI, and a lot of them have money that they reinvest back in the contributors economy. Nobody is paid in bank token or anything. They're paid in real stables that those people can, there's a whole economy, that's a parallel economy that's running, which is the crypto economy, with around DAOs actually. And Impact DAOs are in a better position because they fundraise on Gitcoin, and a lot of open source software projects also fundraise. Infrastructure projects, Ethereum infrastructure projects also fundraise on Gitcoin, and they all get paid in DAI. And then DAI economy powers the contributors economy. And I know, no, sometimes you just end up paying minimum wage, but it's better than nothing. And we are all here for the long run, right? Like, this will become mainstream, and we are in the bear. So I think if we come out of the bear mindset and think of the bull, uh, we'll it'll motivate us because, if you remember 2021, how crazy that was, and that is going to come back. It's just a matter of time.
So, kind of stepping back into the more general part of it, uh, in the bear, you have grants, obviously, you have some payments, you have some funding, and you have intrinsic motivation, of course, right? So, let's say there's a fresh DAO, new DAO, or small DAO that's growing. Uh, how, for the founders, for the team, how would you recommend the best way to motivate the community, to really grow the community, not just of members, right? Not just holders, but actual active community that contributes, that participates, that grows. What combinations of intrinsic, extrinsic, mission driven, right? What's the
I think founders
best way?
need to tell, yeah, founders need to tell this story. Be honest about storytelling in public. And uh, talk about the challenges you're facing. Even I would say don't go like fully into it, because obviously you hold on to your day jobs, but work extra hours. And I think all of that inspires people. Your determination around the cause will inspire people to join you. And I think if you tell that story, because sometimes you suffer in loneliness, like you're suffering, nobody else knows you're suffering. I feel like if you let your suffering be in public, others will emotionally connect with you and would want to join you or help you or distribute, share the load, if nothing else. So I think it's the best time to build and talk about your challenges, how you're working the weekend after working the weekday job, like doing your DAO work. Like, talk about all this, show progress, keep making progress. Number one thing. If you're stagnant, people will think you're dead. Keep making progress, and I think that progress is contagious. It inspires people. And like, that's been my number one thing. Like, as a solo DAO initiative, I wish I had a co-founder. I seriously wish I could share my load. But as a solo founder of Impact DAO Media, like, I mean, I have an amazing tribe, but there are days when I just am doing solo work. Like, I'm making solo progress every single day. I work every single day from Monday to Sunday, even if it's just 1 hour of work, But I do that work, like focused 1 hour of work, no distractions, and make progress every day. And that inspires people.
So with that in mind, I know you're very far from it right now. It's a solid DAO in terms of like the hard contribution that you're making, but in at some future point, right? Where do you see a point where it's time for you or just for other team creators of the DAO to step back and let the community kind of take the lead a bit more? Is there a sort of transition? Is it always a sort of hybrid system? How do you
Yeah,
know when
no,
the
I
community
think
is
it's a
ready?
very valid question. Very valid. I'm always thinking about that, because I'm like, um, you know, decentralizing, like removing yourself from the equation is the number one thing. Like, that should be if you're building the future, that should be part of your future plan. Like, how do you remove yourself and make sure that it is happening? Like, it's, unstoppable even when you're gone. It's existing, the impact is there. And obviously, going the open source route is one way, right? And then finding the true tribe, and then slowly going from 1 to 2 to 2 to 5, like, and 10 people you can trust, even if it's micro, they don't have to be 100. Somebody, and then that open source work, our work is on GitHub. I mean, people can keep contributing to the code. And when you have that micro core team of people to push your mission forward, they can accept pull requests, they can submit. Like, it's all so automated. Like, and in as part of a study, we had two founders, Gitcoin and DreamDAO. The two founders who founded Gitcoin had two co-founders, basically, Scott Moore and Kevin Awaki. They both have decentralized, in the sense they've stepped down from the DAO duties. They're not in the leadership role anymore. And so their DAO is figuring out on their own. And they've had mishaps, like their, alpha round, beta round was filled with so many problems. I can't tell you. Like, and the reason why they're still around is because the community is ready to bear those problems. If it was a corporate, like if it was like a company, like a typical company, I would be like, I'm not ever going to use Gitcoin again. Like, literally, like, you have no idea how much I paid in gas fees. Like, I paid literally $100 doing online editing on my brand applications. And then I paid like more. I applied for like 2 rounds, and I paid like literally $30 applying. And then making donations was like $10 donation costed me $40 in transaction fee. Now, if this was any other company, I would be like, I'm not ever going to use them. But because it's Gitcoin and it's a DAO and it's community, I'm ready to bear with those inefficiencies right now in them, because I know it's a DAO and DAOs take time. They're moving as a community together, and they take time, and the founders have left, so the DAO has to figure it out, like make mistakes, figure it out. And the community is there to support them. And another one is Dream DAO. So Gary Shang co-founded it along with this another 19-year-old girl, Madison, and their whole idea is to train Gen Zs into, onboard them into Web3 and on the good side of Web3, like the regenerative side. And Gary Shang has stepped down. So when I wanted to interview him for Impact DAO Media Study. He's like, I'm out of the equation. I'm not part of DAO anymore. You talk to Madison. She knows everything. She was the co-founder as well. And so he didn't even come for the interview. He's like, let them figure it out. Uh, basically he stepped down, like he's totally given up. So, but you need those founders in the initial days. Like imagine the long run Gitcoin had. Like we're only seeing them as a DAO from 2021, but they existed since 2017. They were a tech company. So both the co-founders have been there since the very beginning, and they only decentralized. They both left the leadership roles, I think, a year ago. That's it, like 2022. So they had that much time to build out the vision, and so did Dream DAO Gary Shang. And so it's not fair uh, if you decentralize as an individual early on, because you won't be able to show the vision, right? Like won't be able to show the value you've created. I think it's, and once you show that, and once there are enough your core tribe, then you should have a exit plan for yourself too. How do you want to exit from this DAO game?
Yeah, and like you said, showing value is probably the number one thing to do, right? Show the value, show the value, show the value. I see there's a request for a question, so I'm gonna open up to questions. By the way, guys, I see there's a bunch of people here. If you have any questions, send a request to ask a question. I'm sure people will be happy to answer them. By the way, I just looked up fees.wtf to see how much I spent on ETH gas fees, and it's scary. It's better not to look at that ever. It's definitely enough to buy some blue chip NFTs, if nothing else. So yeah, ETH gas fees and layer 2 ones have added up over the years. But let's take some questions and see what Roman has to ask. Roman, go ahead.
Hey guys, hi Deepa. Thanks for all thoughts you share. You talk a lot about the Ukraine DAO, this case study, but speaking of treasury management, I mean, if you're speaking about the financial DAO, what do you see? What are the most important pain points in this direction?
Yeah, I can talk from my own experience. So I mean, I fundraised solo on Gitcoin for the first time, raised $8,000 with quadratic matching and everything, and transferred the money into a multi-sig the very next day. Impact on Media was newly formed, and I invited complete strangers to be on the multi-sig with me, like true decentralization, if you say so, like true decentralization. And I went through the horrors of it, like literally by the end of it. And I'm like, that was my number one learning experience. Like, who are you going to share the multi-sig with is very important. I think that trust, the people who sign the multi-sig are the most important people, because they are literally the owners, because they're holding the bank account, right? Like no matter how many discussions you do, how many votes you take on the snapshot, like snapshot is off-chain voting, right? And it's not even, you can't, there is no law that says that you have to abide by the snapshot voting unless you made it a part of your constitution, like unless you're it's part of your incorporation, like a law stated in that. Otherwise the law of the land can't enforce that. So I think it is very important how you appoint people to that multi-sig, because and that can, and I've seen that happen not just in my case, but I would name another initiative that fundraised like whole lot of money, and there were 10 people on the multi-sig, and everybody's names were known, like who's there on the multi-sig, and those people started to get influenced by some other people on the multi-sig who wanted the funds to be allocated to a certain project. Like they started pitching, they kind of formed like a micro lobby group of multi-sig holders to lobby the entire multi-sig people that this is how we should direct the funds. So these are very hard problems. But I would say that when you're just starting off as a founder, invite people. And if you want to if you want to have more than, I think, again, make it merit-based. Make it people who invested time in your DAO, rather than inviting complete strangers on day one to participate in fund allocation. Make it merit based. Like, who will be the people on the multi-sig with me? Either they're the co-founders if you have more than one, or because obviously you all are working on it day in and out. Like, so all the co-founders, if there are four of them should be on the multi-sig. But if you're solo and you start like fresh, start forming your community and you invite complete strangers, it takes time to figure people out, and I think it's a very dangerous move. So make it merit based, make it based on time investment. If you invested X number of hours, you're invited to participate on, you're invited to be on the multi-sig. Because you've put, you've actually done something, you've earned your right to be on that. So that's something to consider.
Okay, got it. But if we speak about the not a little DAO, but about the average one, I don't know, or big DAO like ENS and so on, the same thing. They have like multisig and it's a kind of centralization. Is it a problem? How do you think?
Oh yeah, that's a total problem. That's a theater. I mean, if you see what happened with Arbitrum, like that was like a total theater. Like they did a vote on Snapshot, and the people who were holding the keys to the multi-sig already transferred the money out, and they didn't abide by the vote. And the community was like, "What the?" Like wasn't just like my vote was a vote for no reason. Like it was all a theater. And if you see, a lot of these DeFi DAOs are a theater. They are decentralization in the front and centralization in the back. And VCs are the ones who are moving the ship. They are. It is such a gimmick. I can't tell you. It's a whole marketing. It's a packaging basically. So, but again, I'm coming back to Impact DAOs because that's the space I'm focused on, and they operate very differently. That's why I've launched like an Impact DAO course, because I want to differentiate ourselves from DeFi DAOs. We're not those people. We're different people. We're change makers. We're here to use Web3 to do good, and we stick by our values. And if we say decentralization, we're decentralized. There's no two-way about it.
Awesome, guys. Not to cut it off, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see that we have a founder who wants to ask a question. So if Mitro's on the line with us, let's give him a chance to ask Deepa a question right now. Mitro, can you speak?
Hey, maybe something with my microphone, I don't know. Hello, Deepa.
We can hear you. Yep. Yeah, we can hear you. Your mic is on.
Cool. I just tried to speak, but since I missed something, so yeah, it's great to be here, and I just want to add and continue regarding to mention Deepa's about the pains of the DAOs. So, and also want to ask just one question, because we are also building a DAO protocol right now. It's on the final stage of release and so on. And for me, we are making the cast there, we are making the feedbacks regarding a lot of clients and asking regarding the demand. But what is the ideal DAO for you? So including maybe it is just from your perspective. What do you think? What features maybe, and what main features, including the maybe it would be a part of centralization or decentralization. So never mind on anything, just like your opinion for the idea DAO by design.
Yeah, I think the idea DAO by design is the DAO that's very cohesive, highly aligned, like aim for that, optimize for high alignment of minds. And Balaji's talked about it like through network state, and network state is like nobody starts as a network state, but you start as highly aligned societies, communities, like these minds that are in total synchronization. And when you can achieve that ideal state, you will be voting very little, you will be moving very fast, you will be moving whether you have money or no money, and you will be making an impact, because where every DAO member also thinks, when you reach that ideal highly aligned state, then everybody is thinking how to make this shit work, right? Like whatever you're doing, how to make it work. And for that, then everybody becomes like an entrepreneur. You're not the solo person who's thinking about survival and about operations. Like every single person is thinking that. And so you have like, if you have like 10 people who are highly aligned, it's better than 100 people with a shared mission, you know? So 10 people, if they can be thinking entrepreneurially every single day, how to get work done, how to keep making progress, how to be effective, and then they're collective too, right? Because they're highly aligned minds. So it's not one mind, it's 10 minds working together. I think if one can achieve that stage, it's the best stage.
That is really cool. We have come up on 1 hour, so just not to keep you here for too long, I'm gonna ask one last question, or maybe like a double question, just to fit a little bit more in. Basically, I'm really curious personally, what you see as the future of DAOs, what kind of you see in the next, let's say, 5 years, right? Because the bull market the next year or so could go either way, but 5 years, let's say, where's for DAOs? And then even more importantly, what are you personally working on? Of all the things you're working on, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, I would say that the future, DAOs are the future of work. So DAOs assisted by AI. I know AI is being pushed as the future of work, which is, yeah, which is great because it amplifies our work, right? Like it just gives us more ways to do more, like do more with less, right? So that's fine. So AI assisted DAOs are the future of work because the way the work is done today, like it is so outdated, right? Like offices and having buildings. Like why have buildings? Like why have office spaces? It's just so much more natural for people to meet on the internet. It is just so much more efficient. It's more environmentally friendly. It's also you can tap into a global pool. You don't have a lot of tech companies during COVID they became remote. I mean, obviously, COVID said everybody work from home, so that's when everybody experienced the future for the first time, right? Like everybody's working from home, making things happen. And then after COVID, a lot of companies are like, we're remote first now. Okay, but what does that mean? Remote first means that we're not just going to hire from Silicon Valley. We're going to hire from everywhere else, right? That's their definition of remote. But DAOs by design, by default, are internet native organizations. They're not remote first or anything. They are internet. Internet is remote in the sense it's decentralized. You can hire from anywhere. You can be anywhere and get work done. Like it is all very natural. It is not something as an afterthought, that I'm working. Like for me, I'm sitting outside a cafe and doing this call. I'm not sitting in an office and I work all days, but I work for 2 hours a day. And so it's like, this is the future, right? Like, imagine if everybody can be this free, like sovereign individuals, like contributing to this global economy, and they're part of this internet work lifestyle, working on the internet. I think we are all experimenting with that future right now, but this is the future. And the kids who are growing up on the internet, they know it, but they're just not in. They're not in that working stage right now. They're all students and then schools and all, and they're also being sent to like outdated ways of education. Like go to school. Like why can't they just study from anywhere? They can be modular too. Like why should I study geography and history? Or maybe I should just do arts and this and that. Whatever they like. So even they are being forced into an old way of education, but they're so ready for the change that the change they will when they have the ability and the capacity to make the change happen, it'll be work. They'll be like, I'm not going to go and work in a store, I'm going to do this. And so I think they're so ready, and we are that phase where we are transitioning the old generation and also advocating for the young generation, saying, guys, this is the future of work, being on the internet, collaborating on the internet, and getting real work done. And what was the second question you said?
The second question is what you of the things you're working on. I know you're always working on multiple things and trying
Oh,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
be doing a lot.
Yeah.
Impact, yeah. What's your favorite?
So second thing is I'm onboarding people into the future of work and impact DAOs by taking them through a 7-day, like a really short 7-module course. it is made for internet generation. Like it's so short. Like I deliver it on Telegram, but I also have links where they can study in peace. And in if you take that 7 module, you're onboarded into the future. You have that future mindset basically. So that's one thing that I'm working on. The second thing that we're working on as Impact Our Media is that we want to continue doing research. So last time we researched 12 Impact DAOs that were the most mature as of June 2022. But we've now selected DAOs that have been in operations for 1 year since Jan 1st, 2023. And we've expanded our categories to include DAOs from decentralized science, network state, social impact, climate, enablers. And we've hand selected 16 DAOs that we are going deep with, like we are going to study everything about them and also stream those conversations as podcasts because they are really raw, authentic conversations. Sometimes they're like FBI interrogations, but they're so fun. Like you should go listen to the Proof of Humanity podcasts that are there. They are so fun. And the founders are so generous with sharing their learnings. Like they were like, oh no, we're not ever going to touch true democracy ever again. And they're like, literally in the end, they're like, we need to find a middle path. This perfect democracy experiment didn't really work out for us. So we need to find like a middle path. This is the founder of Keloris and also, Keloris and I think it was called another Democracy Earth came together to form Proof of Humanity. So the founder of Keloris is talking about this whole thing in the podcast, and they're so authentic, the conversations. So listen to those conversations, and yeah, so this is what we want to do. Basically, we want to crack the code on future of effective collaboration. We don't know what it is. Everybody's making mistakes, which are fine, but from those mistakes, we iterate and we come up with better ways of managing ourselves. And once we find that sweet formula, which we've kind of found out in the Impact DAO's beginner stages, what that sweet formula is, and that's being delivered as a 7-module course in the Telegram right now.
I have one more question. Speaking of, I don't know how it's called, I don't know, maybe total world DAOization. I saw a part of your course about DAO managing, and I saw there are a lot of people, and I couldn't understand who is this people. It's a like little community who wanna I don't know, little manage and decentralize their community, or who is this? I mean, who the lot of the biggest audience for the future DAOs, for your opinion? Because you see these people who connect and join to your course. Who is this? Who are the
Yeah, they're the change makers. They want to come here in Web3 because they are tired with the old ways of doing things. So, for instance, there's a person who worked at the UN. He used to manage the United Nations Environment Program for Latin America and the Caribbean, and he's seen that how ineffective UN is and how many it's like basically 95% of the funds goes to consultancies, very little funds goes to doing real work. And so he's frustrated with the system. So people who are frustrated with the system and they've always been driven to do good are looking at Web3 as a way to reimagine things, And so they're part of my community. They're the change makers. They want to use the Web3 tooling to make change, and they want to organize and find like-minded people. So they want to start DAOs. And so the UN guy, for instance, I helped him launch his DAO on Twitter, and also went and spoke on his behalf at Shelling Point about the DAO and his vision and why he wants to start, because he thinks with Web3 we can do better. It's a totally new canvas. We can reimagine things.
So first of all, it's like the people who want to try something new, like crypto enthusiasts and so on. Yeah, I mean, made their project on like decentralized DAO organization, but just people who are interested in something new. Am I right?
In something new, yeah. People who are interested in trying out new ways of doing things are here. They want to see how they can use internet native ways or more decentralized ways or And it's not about Web3 so much. Web3 has the tooling, which is fantastic. Like multisig is a fantastic tool.
But
All
centralized too.
sorry.
But centralized too, as we discussed before.
I know. I mean,
No, it's okay. I mean, it's useful thing,
you
of
know what?
course.
I'm not. I never advocate for Web3. What I'm advocating is for future of work and future of organizing, and it just so happens that the Web3 tools fit in there. So, and what you can, like, if you take the course, we only talk about Web3 tooling in step 6. Before that, it's all using Google Docs and Notions, and we will have those Web3 versions of it eventually, and you can move on to that with your decentralization ethos of it. But initially, you're mission driven, and you're finding new ways to get things done. So I think that's the broader invitation to participate in Web3. The broader invitation, the DAO thinking.
Okay, thank you.
That was such a fascinating discussion back and forth. I didn't want to interrupt, but we are kind of an hour, almost an hour and 15 minutes into it. So, by the way, just before I let go, I loved how you said sovereign people working together for a better world. That seems like the perfect work model if I could ever think of one, right? Much better one. So this is
I agree. I wish that becomes a reality very soon for everybody.
I think that's what we're working on, right? That's
Yes.
what we're all here for.
And thank you so much. I truly enjoyed the conversation. I love the question and answers back and forth. Everybody who came in and listened, it was truly amazing. Seriously, thank you so much.
Same. And by the way, for the office buildings, I have read somewhere recently that some city, I can't remember which one it is, they can
It's
even
San Francisco. I
San
know, like
Francisco?
Salesforce. Yeah, they built like this massive Salesforce tower. And Apple also built this massive spaceship in Cupertino. This was all pre-COVID, obviously. And
Yeah.
Apple obviously made it mandatory for their employees to return to work. So, but when you have choice, like Salesforce has given choice, people don't want to come in anymore. They've experienced the freedom of working at home, like
course.
so once you taste that, it's hard to come back. But
One
be stuck in the traffic. I've lived in Bay Area and
No,
I know the traffic was so bad. Two
right.
to three hours on the road to get to work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's insane. But what I've heard is that some cities are turning those offices, abandoned offices, into lower income housing, right? So
Oh,
they
that's
can
amazing.
right? Yeah. So with
Yeah.
all of this empty space now, underused space, and maybe through tax incentives or whatever it is, uh, there's a chance to actually give it back to the people while helping people work from, a cafe, their home, a beach in Thailand, wherever it is, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
sounds like a better future, right?
It is. And, you should definitely check out Kift DAO. We just did a podcast on them. They are redefining cities. They talked about these things, empty buildings. And the future is work, live as a community, be anywhere. And so they are a tribe of nomad community, but they are so well equipped. Like they were parked in Joshua Tree right now, but they had like Starlink satellite and I mean everything to get work done. There was a girl in their community on site who was managing a team of 100 software engineers and working from 8 to 5. But and so they have everything you need, like all the comfort you need to work as a community from anywhere. And so they're redefining the future of cities, living and work totally. Like a lot of people, like when they retire, they want to downsize. They don't want to live in the cities. And suburbs can be lonely, right? They can be lonely places. But then, what if you had an option to be with Gift DAO, who moves around, or you can join them. Like if you don't want to be all 365 days on the road, you can join them when you want to and experience the communal living. Like look at the pop-up city we are having right now. So it's all so fascinating. The future is going to be exciting.
Amazing. Honestly, I think we need to continue this conversation. Not today, obviously, but I'm gonna with joy invite you again to continue this and talk about all these
Great.
issues.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Sustainable cities. Let's do that. For now,
Yeah.
huge thanks. And let's thank everybody who joined us today, everyone who asked questions. I'm sure, Deepa, what's the best way to contact you for those who want to follow up?
They can Twitter DM me, and I have the same handle on Telegram and same handle on Discord. Deepa Rocks. So
Okay, you heard it here. If you have something meaningful, interesting to ask her or suggest, DM her. She will be nice to you. And of course, you know how to contact us here at DeXe through our social channels, Telegram, Twitter, and Medium, and Discord, of course. Talk to you guys next time. And again, huge thanks to Deepa. We don't really do sound effects here, but if we did, it'd be a huge round of applause. Thank you, everyone. Let's wrap this up here.
thank you. Bye bye.